Assalamu alaikum. Hello and welcome. I'm Shazia joining you on Unity FM 93.5 FM. We're really excited to have you all join me today for a discussion on topics related to nutrition, which I hope may support you and your loved ones, those that you influence, with better health and well-being. So before I get into the show, as usual, I'd like to remind listeners that all the information that I share today is very general in nature. It's not there to provide medical advice. It's not there to kind of target any individual person. It's there for empowerment. It's there to educate and allow people to look at the bigger picture, to get involved with their health a bit more, to learn about what might benefit them and utilize that in their day-to-day food and nutrition needs. It's kind of there for that reason alone. So for anyone with any medical issues or concerns related to today's show or otherwise, please be sure to seek medical advice from your own general practitioner. Remember, they're there to help you. They're there, they know you best. They'll be able to run the tests that you need. They'll be able to give you that foundational care that you need. So today, my topic, after scratching my head for a very long time, is fibre. Now, may not be the most interesting topic to talk about, and I guess because it's something that's really overlooked in many cases. I mean, I find in my practice that people perhaps are on the lower side of this particular nutrient. I know that for me personally, I've struggled with fibre myself, and I probably still do in some respects. So it can be something that really needs highlighting, I think. And, I really did want to kind of spend the time today to kind of not just refresh my own knowledge, but also to kind of help bring out the reasons for why this is something that we do need to focus on. And actually, the nice thing about this particular nutrient is that it's not that difficult to get in when you know a bit more about what it is, what it does, the health benefits that we can achieve by utilizing, foods which are rich in fiber, in many ways, forms, and then how to actually get that fiber in. So the idea about my shows is that, you're able to take away something that you can use. It's meant to be of a practical nature because, I could quite easily be lecturing somewhere, or I could be talking to a client on a one-to-one level, which serve different purposes. But the point of this show is that you hear what I say, and I try to explain it in a way that it can be understood. But the idea is that you take something away, something that you can use for yourself, for your family, for those people that are around you that you can influence, just using the benefits from that information. So that's kind of what the whole point of the show is, and I'm sure you've heard me say this before. So, I mean, when you think about fibre, or you hear the word fibre, what do you think of? What does it kind of mean to you? Do you think about cardboard? That's probably one way you can think of fibre. Do you think about Weetabix? I mean, it's something I used to think about when someone used to talk about fibre to me when I was very early, sort of, in my field, working in health. Do you think about fruit and fibre, something of that nature? Is it only found in cereal? What comes to your mind? I think it's something that's quite a nice topic to have in a health-related field because, it's interesting to see what people imagine and think fibre is, and then, coming back to them with the same question, perhaps after they've had an educational session on what fibre is, then kind of seeing what their answer is and seeing how they feel. Does it intimidate you? For me personally, it did. And even now when I look at ways of increasing fibre, I really do need to kind of, think about my intake. And actually, I find it a lot easier now that I know where I can find my fibre, how I can add to my meals, because that's kind of the easier way to do it. You want to add, not take away, unless you're working with someone and something does need to be taken away for good reason. So it's quite a nice journey to be on whilst you're looking at improving your own nutrition. So what is fiber then? So most people are kind of quite familiar with nutrients in terms of the macronutrients. So when we talk about macronutrients, these are the kind of the bigger version of nutrients. So we're kind of looking at the majority or the kind of the larger aspect of nutrition. We talk about fats, we talk about carbohydrates, and we talk about protein. Now, fibers actually form the carbohydrate component of these macronutrients. So it's not an additional nutrient, it's part and parcel of these macronutrients that we talk about day in, day out when we discuss nutritional topics, or when we're talking to a client, whatever the discussion may be. And fibers, like I said, form part of that carbohydrate kind of branch, if you like. The other part being the sugars. So fibers, you can think of as coming from your plants. So think about, plants as in the green, and also think about what plants produce, as in like nuts and seeds, for example. And when we think about fibers, we think about the effect that they're having in our body, or the way the body is responding to them, in terms of the health benefits that we see, the kind of the benefits that they have, in the longer term on our bodies as well, and what they do for us on a day-to-day basis as well. So, largely they kind of the kind of nutrient that we don't really expect to be broken down as such. And we kind of relate them to the digestive side of our health. And this is all going to be really, easy to understand when you start to see the benefits of fiber. So we kind of normally relate it to, the component of our diet that will pass through our gut, from the mouth to the back passage and out. And, it doesn't really get digested in the same way as other macronutrients are. And you'll start to see how they benefit because of the way they work in the body, what they do for us. And we do break down fibers into two components. So we've got soluble fibers and insoluble, and now they are both needed in the diet because they both have their kind of benefits that they confer, and they're going to come from different sources of food. Okay, so we want to start looking at what these individual types of fibers do, soluble and insoluble, and what they're conferring in terms of the individual benefits that they bring. So remember, I talked about fibers passing through the gut undigested, being fermented by bacteria in our gut, and also we want to talk about whether or not they're being used for energy. And the answer here is no, they're not. They're being used for a particular kind of benefit, as I mentioned, to be passing through the gut is one of them. Why? Because what is it doing? It's acting like a cleaner. So if you've got this bulked material that is helping you to pass food that's not needed in the gut through to the other end until we can actually pass it out as stool, you can see how it's acting as a cleaner, so to speak. It's like having a cleaner in an office. I mean, what does an office look like at the end of the day sometimes? If that office is not cleaned at the end of the day, you're going to be coming back to a dirty office, and therefore putting up with the consequences of, are you going to clean up the day first before you start your work? Or are you going to be starting the day in an office that's got rubbish lying everywhere, food that's been lying around from the night before, cups that need washing? It's a very kind of simple analogy, but you could see the consequences of when the food hasn't moved through the gut to the other end, undigested food that you don't need, other waste material that's been thrown into the body that needs to be removed by a stool. It's going to have its consequences. Okay, so these are things that we need to look at. So I've talked a little bit about the sort of the water insoluble fibers, but we want to look at what soluble and insoluble fibers are more about, and what they actually do, where they're found, and how they benefit. So, as I mentioned, the two components are soluble, insoluble fibers. Think about soluble fibers as being water soluble, so they like water, they gel up, they form like this kind of gel-like substance, so to speak. Pectins are an example. Beta-glucans are another example. And you'll find these kinds of fibers in foods like apples, in berries, in oatmeal. So these are examples of foods where you'll find them. And I'm going to talk more about this later on. And I'll be looking at how much you can get from particular foods as well, just to give you an idea of what high fiber foods are or what lower fiber foods are and how you can start building them in. And in comparison to these fibers, you've got the insoluble fiber, which means that they don't dissolve in water. And these contain the plant material known as cellulose. Okay, and we'll find these in foods such as nuts, such as seeds, in whole grains are example as well. Now, foods that contain fiber will have one of them or both of them, and there can be a mixture. And the idea is to get both in. You need to try and get both types of fibers in because, like I'm going to mention, they have their individual benefits. Okay, so as I mentioned, fibers are not used for energy. The energy source is actually coming from your sugars, from your fats, depending on when they're burnt, and sometimes from your protein as well. But by and large, we get sort of our energy from the sugars that we consume, which are also carbohydrates. So what we want to try and do, as I mentioned, is to get both of these in because they both have benefits. And what we want to try and do is build it in a way that we can actually meet our fiber intake on a daily basis. So it's not about increasing fiber for a day and saying I've done this and that's it. It's about making sure that you're able to sustain this on a longer term basis. And once you learn about the types of food that will contain fiber, you'll be able to do this much, much easily. Now, as I mentioned, insoluble fibers don't dissolve in water, and we find these from plant-based sources. Soluble fibers will dissolve, and these actually are really interesting because what they do is they provide a food source for gut bacteria. So if you've listened to a previous show where I talked about the gut microbiome, now this is where you've got a community of bugs, including bacteria, fungi, viruses, archaea. They all live out together, hang out together, if you like, in the gut. And what they actually do is they work alongside one another to produce a whole load of benefits for the body. Some of them will produce hormones. Some vitamins may be produced in the gut, neurotransmitters as well. So they actually have a very huge impact in our day-to-day health. And, the research that we're seeing that is sort of being, it's kind of being developed, if you like. It's being kind of more and more available to us as studies are being done. A lot of the studies are showing how the microbiome has a huge impact on health in different ways and means. So a lot of the chronic conditions that we are seeing have some sort of link to this microbiome, particularly when it's not in its optimal state. So that's when we call we say people are in a state of dysbiosis, because this community, if you like, is offset. And now that can happen for a whole range of reasons. Sometimes it can be a dietary reason. It can be, it could be due to medication. It can be due to stresses. It can be due to, chemicals that we're putting into our body, not necessarily medical related, but otherwise. There can be a whole host of reasons why the microbiome may be offset. And it does make sense that we kind of nurture and look after our microbiome to help support better health for ourselves individually, as well as, those around us as well. Because the idea is that we're looking to support each other while we're on this journey of nutrition. And again, this is one of the reasons why I decide to do these shows. So, feeding those bacteria, those, that community, so to speak, is essential. And this is where soluble fibers are really beneficial. They want to be able to use these fibers that we're putting into our body, feed off them, and produce these really amazing, byproducts, so to speak, that are really beneficial to our health. Now, you know, we can, you can sort of argue the point about just putting in bacteria, as in like with probiotics, for example. And yeah, you can do that, but you have to kind of think on a longer term basis. I mean, if you're taking probiotics, how long are they actually having a benefit to your body? I mean, I'm not against probiotics. I think they have their space, in healthcare and in helping support people with their health. But, with nutrition, food always comes first. So, the idea is to get yourself eating these bacteria, so to speak, or feeding them, whether you go via the route of fermented foods, to get your bacteria, or or you're then kind of providing foods to them, through using these soluble fibers, which are both important. And, you'll find benefits if you look in the research, whether it's blood sugar control, whether it's immune function, whether it's brain health. Weight management is a big one. Digestive conditions. There's so many different things that you will find, are linked to the microbiome, which is then linked to the foods that you're providing that microbiome. And then, soluble fibers are coming into this very easily. As I mentioned, oats and apples are great. Those are two foods that we can easily incorporate, so readily available. Think about doing overnight oats and just grating some apple on top. Think about, just having apples as a snack, including a protein or a fat source to control that blood sugar level. So easily done. It's something that anyone can do. Obviously, work with your own tolerances, your own allergies, whatever your preferences are. And, other sources include, and remember, these lists aren't exhaustive. They're just kind of ideas for you to kind of, bear in mind, because, not everyone has the same preference, and that's understandable. Think about beans, think about lentils, think about peas, the legume family. You can get them from those sources. Carrots are an amazing source. Oranges, lemons, psyllium is something that some people will use. I know it's not a very common one, but if you're kind of brave, psyllium is another idea there as well. So these are all there, and it's about getting a variety, getting as many different types of soluble fibers in, because you want to kind of be nourishing that microbiome from different levels. You want to sort of be thinking about how your microbiome is going to kind of be responding to this kind of variety. And remember, our health comes from that variety. Every different food source that we incorporate into our diet is providing us with a different range of phytochemicals, vitamins, minerals, these kinds of these nutrients that a food is really composed of. And we want to try and get a range. We want to get the whole spectrum. We don't want to kind of be focusing just on one or two different foods. So it's about experimentation, it's about being brave, but it's about starting somewhere. So if you've never incorporated these foods into your diet, it's about kind of experimenting and getting sort of a little bit more inquisitive about what you can actually do. And you'll find that once you're on that journey, it's a very enjoyable journey. Get your family on board. If you've got children, they will love the challenge. Talk to them about color, talk to them about variety, talk to them about what's actually going on in the body. And there are ways and means to do this. It doesn't have to be a complex science. You can always leave that to the nutritionist. That's what we're here for. The idea is that you pick up the basics and then teach your children. You want them to eat better than you did. The generations that are to come, the idea is to get them living better than we are, to be more informed, to be educated more than we are. That's the whole kind of point of these shows. It's about creating that community that's going to, serve for generations to come. Okay, so now these fibers, these soluble ones, will form a gel, as I mentioned. Think about, foods that gel. There are lots of seeds that will have that ability to do that. And the nice thing about these is not only do they kind of give you the feeling of fullness. So if you've had overnight oats, for example, you can go for a whole good few hours sometimes. I mean, I find that when I've had a bowl of oats in the morning, I'm not hungry until sort of 4 or 5 o'clock, even later in the evening. I mean, obviously, we're all different. Our bodies respond in different ways. And I would never tell anyone to kind of, you know, to start doing that, without seeking support from someone, because, we want to make sure that that is the right way for you to eat. But, if you think about these foods that are gelling up, they're going to provide you with that fullness for longer. So that feeling of satiety, that feeling of kind of, you know, that sort of satisfaction, if you like, from a meal. You're not having to then snack. You're not having to then, erratically eat throughout the day, unnecessarily for some of us, and depending on the goals that you have. So it's a great way to see how already that can be beneficial for you. Not only are you feeding the microbiome, but you're also dealing with a potential issue that you may have. Now, this is something that I've had personally, and I do see in my clients as well. So I know that this is a definite, positive that someone can try. Obviously, it's down to you whether you want to try oats, but it's a really good food source that you can incorporate for this particular purpose. So it's going to have that benefit. It's also slowing things down, so you're not getting this spiking of blood sugar, particularly if you're mixing other beneficial ingredients into your oats. So think about adding things like coconut. Sometimes you can add maybe some berries into that. Think about perhaps adding in some seeds or some nuts. All of these things will actually add to the benefit that you're getting from the oats in and of themselves. And if you're going to eat in a more controlled manner, it's going to help you if you've got things like weight issues to think about. It's going to help you with, if you've got maybe a sugar imbalance that you're looking to manage. Maybe you're diabetic, maybe you're pre-diabetic. You want to be curbing these sugar spikes, and that's a really good way to kind of start building in foods to give you those benefits and have a good impact on any chronic health condition that you may have. So, those are two groups of, or three groups, I should say, of people that could really benefit. And you can see that, it's a really easy way to do this. Many, many examples of simple recipes online. I was just speaking to a client the other day about this. Change things up. Don't get yourself into a state where you're bored. When you get bored, you're going to stop doing what you were doing, even if it was a really good habit. So, I mean, there's so many different recipes you can do. You can add dates in to overnight oats. You'll get like a caramel flavor. You can add berries in. You can, add in nuts and seeds, as I mentioned. You can really, really, add variety and flavor. And that's a really key thing in nutrition. You want to make it interesting. It's got to be like a color palette. If you go gray on your food, you're gonna pass out before you've even got to the finish line. So you want to sort of get that kind of routine built on interest. It's got to be a routine built on interest. If it's something that you're dragging your feet on, it's not something that will be sustainable, and then you're just really defeating the objective, so to speak. So that's a really good way to do that. Fibers in the soluble form are also great for helping support with cholesterol. Many of us may have this as a kind of a condition that we need to manage. If you look at the research on what foods will benefit lowering cholesterol, whether you're on medication or it's something that you've kind of just come up against, or someone who's got high cholesterol, this is one way that you can support lowering that cholesterol that may not be so favorable. So that binding to the cholesterol that we don't really want so much of in the body is useful with these soluble fibers, because we want the clearance, we want this out of the body. And why not try utilizing fibers for that reason, soluble fibers. So again, mentioned oats and apples. Think about, in addition to this flaxseed, you want to grind them down and utilize those. I add flaxseed to a morning shake. Really easy to consume. You can add it in baking. You can have it on your cereal. Add it to your oats. If you don't want to add them in while you're kind of soaking them overnight. You can add them on top your oats, your oatmeal with flax seeds. Pears are great. Like I said, nuts and seeds are really useful. Lots and lots of different ways you can do this. Bananas, strawberries, all of these fruits have that soluble fiber, and they will support you with this. But if you read around this area, particularly if you do have cholesterol issues, you'll find a lot of information that there about what you can do. And obviously, again, I'm not providing medical advice. I'm not saying stop medication, change your medication, do this instead. It's never a case of that. It's always working with your doctor, looking at the medication that's available, looking at the lifestyle change that you can make. It's all part and parcel of trying to achieve that goal that you're looking for. So, have this multi-pronged approach to getting your health in a better place by looking at the information that's available to you. And then obviously working with a nutritional therapist will get you to that higher level, because you'll have that tailored and individual support. So what about the insoluble fibers and these guys that are not kind of forming a gel in your body? What are they doing? Where's the benefit of those? So as I mentioned, the cleaner in the office, that's the kind of example you're looking at here. So this is what we refer to as roughage. It's what kind of helps to bulk the stool, So for those of you who've had a bout of constipation, I mean, how uncomfortable is that? I wouldn't recommend constipation. It's something that anyone experiences if they can at all help it. And the thing is, we can. Obviously, if you've got a medical issue or concern, or there's something there that's, related to a particular pathology, then I can understand it might be slightly different for you. But, by and large, the most of us, we can do things to stop ourselves being constipated. Constipation is not normal. I'm going to say that again. If you're a healthy individual, with no particular medical reason why this is an issue, constipation is not normal. You should be passing a bowel every day, at least once a day. So for those of you who are listening and thinking, oh, I go once every 2 days or 3 days, this is not normal. Now, why is this a problem? Not only is it uncomfortable, not only are you reabsorbing toxins that need to be removed from the body every day, you are also putting yourself at risk of other issues longer term. Okay? The whole point of your bowel is to extract the nutrients that you need for your body. So that's the absorption side of things, through your gut, and to eliminate waste products that are not needed, as well as whether they come from your food or whether they come from all the chemical reactions that are taking place in our body every day and is being chucked into the gut to be excreted. So if you are not removing or producing a bowel every day, a bowel motion every day, and then there's a whole, load that can be said about the type of bowel, what it should look like, what kind of shape it should be, what kind of size it should be, all these things. And, perhaps that's a discussion for another day. But the point is that you should be passing a bowel every day easily, without straining, without causing injury to yourself, every day. Okay? Really essential. And the question that you really need to ask yourself is, am I doing enough for my body? Am I doing enough for my body to ensure that I'm cleaning it, as well as allowing myself the benefit of this to happen? Now, we're talking about bowel regulation, and this is what is actually happening when you're providing your body with insoluble fiber. Okay, it's allowing that cleaning process to take place. Because if you think about a bulk of material pushing your food along the gut, allowing it to contract and relax and pass this unwanted material through the gut, you can see how it's acting as a cleaner. Okay. Examples of foods that you can incorporate, again, down to individual requirements due to individual preferences, tolerances, allergies, etc. will include bran. It will include things like apples, I mentioned before. So apples are coming in again here. And you're thinking about the skins. You want to think about the skins here now. Now, why is it that apples are recommended to be consumed organic? Because oftentimes they are quite heavily sprayed. And we want to consume the skins. We don't want to start peeling our fruits and veggies unnecessarily. So ideally, apples should be consumed organically. If you can't do that right now, and I understand that, and I know it's not easy with the current climate that we're in, think about looking at ways to wash off the pesticides. And you can do this if you go online and look at how you can wash your fruit and veg, whilst you work your way to trying to incorporate organic fruit and veg into your diet. So think about the dirty dozen and the clean 15, and that will help you to understand. So apple, in terms of their skins, as well as pears, in terms of their skins, are very useful in terms of the roughage, that kind of insoluble fiber. Excuse me. And then you can think about things like green beans, really good, leafy green vegetables, seeds, nuts, berries, and even the skins of other fruit. These are all going to help you to basically bulk up that stool, help it move along. Okay, there's a whole range of foods that you can look into. Again, you want to ensure that what you're producing in the body, as well as what you're consuming and is not needed, is being eliminated. Remember, it's full of toxins, that waste material. We don't want to be hanging on to it. So the idea is to get this out of the body on a regular basis. And you can do this by consuming fibers. And we need both types, as I've mentioned. So just very quickly then, what is the recommended daily allowance? So this is kind of the figure that the health authority will say we need on a daily basis when it comes to particular nutrients. And the fiber is obviously in that, is the same. There's an amount that we need to consume. So the amounts are variable depending on age group. And so you can find this online very easily. But for the adult, if you like, 17 years and over, the UK recommended intake is the 30 grams per day level. So you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, how do I get this 30 grams per day in? And it does sound like a lot, but when you kind of identify the foods, when you kind of start to learn what those foods are, you'll see it can be done. Maybe difficult in the beginning, especially when you maybe are not so used to eating those foods, but as you kind of progress, you'll find that it does get easier. So bear with me. I am going to talk about what foods these are in a bit more detail in terms of amounts, and I'm going to talk about how you can do that, and that will be something that we'll look at very shortly. So I've mentioned some of the benefits already. I've talked about gut health. I've talked about immune benefits. I've talked about how these can benefit the microbiome. Weight loss is another one. Weight maintenance. There's so many different benefits. I've talked about how fibers can benefit people who have got blood sugar imbalances as a particular issue. So we're talking about diabetics, and those who are pre-diabetic as well. You can see how they'll start to benefit those people. I talked about cholesterol and how we want to kind of monitor cholesterol, particularly if you've got a cardiovascular issue going on. And you can see how then fibers are very crucial in monitoring and management of cardiovascular disease. So, I've talked about how, these fibers can help carry the cholesterol out when we don't need it. There's also some, kind of information in the literature, in the research, talking about how fibers can support with reducing inflammation, and this is a big thing in cardiovascular disease as well as other chronic health conditions, as well as lowering blood pressure. So you can see how there's great information there to support with cardiovascular health. And this is a very common issue in the South Asian community. It's something that, we're seeing in the stats. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be something that we're perhaps, as individuals, maybe we're not so aware of. And I think this is where you really need to get down with the information, read what information is going to benefit you, look at what you can do and work with your doctor. They're going to give you the medication, they're going to give you the health advice, they're going to give you the resources that are available via them. But you want to be doing as much as you can from a dietary perspective, because you need to take responsibility for your own health. The idea is that we empower ourselves and use the information that's available to us whilst getting the benefit from our doctors. They're not there to do everything for us. They're not there to spoon feed us, so to speak. They're there to support us. And, we need to kind of remember that that's how we kind of want to work this thing going forward. Our health is an investment. We want to kind of do the best that we can whilst benefiting from the services that are available. Remember, it's not easy now with the huge demand on services to get hold of things that you need. Sometimes there's a delay. Sometimes you've got to be hanging around to get what you're looking for, because simply there isn't enough to go around sometimes, or there's a delay because of the demand. So why do you want to put yourself into a circumstance like that? Why wouldn't you want to do the best that you can and then seek the advice that you need on top? That's not to say don't approach your doctor, not at all. They're there for that reason. It's so that you kind of offset that unnecessary burden. And we're all kind of in that situation where we're going to need our doctor's support, for an acute condition. But you want to be able to put yourself into a place where chronic conditions are managed really well. And that's kind of the beauty of nutrition, in that it helps you to get there, get that learning and put it into practice, so that you're not kind of knocking on your doctor's door for every niggle that you have. Because, you want to be able to let them see the people who are really in need, who are the sickest amongst us, that really need to be seen, who really need that support. So, we should be thinking of others while we're on this journey, because it's not just about ourselves, it's about them as well. Okay, so I've talked a lot about kind of the benefits. I've talked a lot about what fibers are. I'm going to stop for a short break and, kind of come back to looking at the practical side of this, because that's the whole point. So please stay tuned, more after this short break. So you're listening to me, Shazia, on the Nutrition Show on Unity FM, 93.5 FM. I'm talking to you today about fibre. I'm back with you shortly. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Nutrition Show. You're joining me, Shazia, on Unity FM, 93.5 FM. Before the break, I was talking about fibre. So not the most interesting subjects, I think, off the top of anyone's head, I would say, but actually when you take a deeper dive, it's amazing. A nutrient, as I mentioned, that's probably underutilized, perhaps not discussed enough, although if you look online, you'll see a lot of information about fibre. So I'm back for more to talk about where you can find this fibre in a little bit more detail in terms of amounts. And I want to leave you with tips that you can actually use to practically include this fibre into your diet, because that's the point, as I mentioned. So just a reminder that the discussion is for information purposes only and does not constitute medical advice in any way. Remember, your GP is there for that. If you do find that this resonates with you, you're concerned about anything, whether related to what I'm talking about today or otherwise, please do consult with your own medical practitioner. So let's dive in. In terms of the kinds of foods that will have fibre, I mentioned quite a lot already, but I want to kind of give you numbers now. So let's go, for argument's sake, with about 100 gram. Okay, so think of 100 gram of any particular food type of these that I'm going to mention. And I'm going to talk to you about foods which are perhaps on the higher end when it comes to fibre intake. And remember, some of these are going to have soluble, some are going to have insoluble, some are going to have both. You want to get a variety because you need both types, because they both confer benefits in their own particular way, as I mentioned in the first half of the show. And I want you to start getting a feel for where these kind of sit on the spectrum of fibre, and how you can start to incorporate them. You might be someone who's very low in fibre intake, in which case you might want to try the higher end. But I would always say that if you are increasing fibre for the first time, do it gradually, because it can cause digestive issues in some people. And, the idea is that you always work with someone so that they can support you. But there's no reason why you can't start somewhere, even if it is, adding in a few foods every day and starting on the lower end. So I mentioned apples and pears. They kind of sit in my head as a really great option, because they're readily available, easy to consume. They're not really unfavorable in the kind of the bigger sight of things, and I think they're a nice way to kind of incorporate fibers into your diet. So as I mentioned, organic's always best, but that doesn't mean that you should start consuming these, or never try, because you can't go down the road of organic. The idea is to do what you can with what you're able to afford and make the best of it. So if you think the size of a medium pear, medium apple, we're talking around that kind of measurement, if you like. We're looking at least 4 to 5 grams of fiber, and this is with the skin on. So we're not peeling these things, okay? We're going to be consuming them with the skins on. So, if you don't like skins, I know it's difficult for people who perhaps have chewing issues, might be a little bit difficult. But then, you might need to find other ways to incorporate those fibers into your diet. But, for those of us who don't have that as a particular issue, you want to leave the skins on. Okay, those are two great examples, easily, readily available. Think about ways that you can incorporate them. I will give you some ideas, in a little bit more detail shortly. But that's a really good place to start. Kind of on the same level, you're looking at say things like bran flakes. I mentioned bran flakes when I opened the show. So bran flakes, you can get sort of from about 75 grams. You're looking at that same sort of level as those pears and apples. So giving you that 5-gram range of fiber. So, you can start the day with bran flakes if that's what you have, remembering to consume them with a good protein or a fat source, So you want to kind of you get that healthy meal in and balanced. And then, you'll be doing your fibers as well. So that's a really easy one there. Think about chickpeas. Again, you're looking at about 75 grams of chickpeas. Going to give you about the same range, 5.5 grams, 5 grams of fibers. Really useful. And how easy and versatile, are chickpeas. I mean, I use them all the time. What can you make from them? Add them to salads, cook them in a curry. I mash them down and make burgers with them. Falafel, I do them in the air fryer, however, you want to go and do these. So easy, so versatile, so readily available. Really nice ways to increase your fiber. Now, a really good one that I was really pleased to see, because it's one of my favorite foods, is an avocado. So half an avocado, average size, is going to give you 6.7 grams of fiber, which is absolutely amazing. Now, avocados are amazing, a source of healthy fats. So you can think about getting your fat intake as well as your fibers from half an avocado. So think about how you can incorporate avocados into your diet. Again, I find it very versatile. I will have it on a salad. I've had them in smoothies. Really easy to incorporate. I know some people perhaps don't like the taste of them. You can add things like salt, pepper. You can add them if you're adding them into a smoothie, you can add chocolate powder. You can do so much to kind of flavor an avocado if you don't like the actual taste of one. Really nice to actually, incorporate into a day-to-day routine of eating. On the lower end then, so we're looking at something perhaps like in the 2-point ranges, 3 grams, or, that kind of range. You're just thinking of things like, for example, a quarter of a cup of quinoa. So that's about 25 grams of quinoa. Will give you about 2.7 grams. 1 raw small carrot, 2.3 grams. So that kind of range. Easily incorporated. Again, a carrot, readily available, not going to be much of an issue. If you're topping up your breakfast and you're not soaking these, in your overnight oats, chia or flaxseed are great, and that's giving you kind of mid-range. You're looking at about 3 grams for, half a tablespoon to about a tablespoon. So you're getting quite a lot actually in a very small amount. It's kind of, you're punching in the fiber there, quite easily just by topping up your cereal. So, look at these values are readily available online. So you can look at where they fit in. I mean, if you're going really low, you're looking at a banana, medium banana, easily, readily available. 100 grams of strawberries, giving you about the 1.5 gram range, both of these, so again, very easily incorporated everyday foods. There's no way that, that there isn't going to be something that's going to serve you, so to speak, because these are everyday foods. Now, for an adult, as I mentioned, 30 grams is kind of the recommended allowance, sort of intake that we need on a daily basis. So this is kind of coming from all of your fiber sources. And, if you're not consuming fiber, as I mentioned already, and it's not something that you've routinely done, then you want to work up slowly and gradually. You don't want to kind of be going, heavy on fiber and finding that you've got digestive upset, your stomach's just not settled, you've got yourself into a stage where you're kind of like, you've got a loose bowel. You don't want to be doing this because, the body needs to get used to what you're providing it on a gradual basis. So, and longer term change starts with gradual change to begin with as well. So it's not about like what you're going to do today and then, ignore every good thing you've done on the second day. It's not kind of that kind of approach. So, work at your own pace. Work at a pace that's comfortable for you. And like I said, if there are medical issues, if there are other things that are in the background, first of all, seek support from your doctor and then work with a nutritional therapist, obviously seeking out someone who's appropriately trained and accredited. And they'll help you on that journey. But, this is about kind of looking and learning for yourself right now and seeing what you can do. And making little modifications on a daily basis is great because you feel good. You'll start to notice the difference. And, you'll feel like you're ready to make this change because at the end of the day, you need to get to a stage where you're able to do this on your own and, get your family on board and have this part and parcel of your day in, day out life. It's kind of like, dressing yourself in the morning. It's like, brushing your teeth before you go to bed. It's kind of a routine. It's got to be something that you do unassisted at some point, on a longer term basis. And by all means, when there's a dip, when there's a kind of a target or a new kind of aim to reach, we're here for that. We're here to support you. And, I find that with my clients, some of them just need a little push to get on their journey. Some of them really are struggling. And everyone's different. It's never about judgment. It's about kind of supporting someone on their journey. We're all unique. We're all different. We all respond and react in different ways. And I think it's about kind of meeting people on their journey and supporting them and always finding the positive. I mean, you may have a day when you've not consumed a lot of fiber. That's okay. Work on what you're going to do the next day to kind of keep that journey going forward. So as I mentioned, porridge is a great option. If you add some nuts and seeds and some blueberries, for example, or some strawberries, you're going to get a whole load of, kind of fiber intake just from that alone. So an example would be oat porridge, nut seeds, and maybe 25 grams of some blueberries, and that'll give you 9 grams, which is amazing. I mean, that's a third of your daily intake. So you've done a third already at breakfast. So now all you got to do is focus on that, that 2/3 if you're working on that target. Okay. Another really easy way, and this is something I talk about all the time, is through vegetable intake. So if you are struggling to get your 5 a day, really should be coming up to 10 a day, even more. Think about stir fries, smoothies, soups. Think about salads. Think about ways that you can incorporate vegetables into your diet that doesn't make you kind of like, think, oh my goodness, how do I do this? You don't want that struggle aspect. You want to kind of hide things that you're not normally likely to eat. So I do that with mushrooms and kale, for example, in a soup. So easily done. So I was talking to someone today about celery. I find it quite hard to consume on its own. So I will put it into a smoothie. There's different ways that you can do this. And an example of having a meal where you can incorporate a good amount of fiber, almost reaching actually half of your intake. I was amazed with this one. Is looking at a vegetable stir fry with kale, adding some bean sprouts, some broccoli, and some kale, and then a portion of brown rice, and that gives you 14 grams of fiber. So that's half of your intake. So if you didn't do so much at breakfast, you can put a massive dent in that daily intake just by having that as this vegetable stir fry with brown rice for lunch. Easily done. Okay, so think about ways that you can do this. Again, adding things to your current meals, whether that be nuts, seeds, berries, fruits. These can all be easy and simple ways to increase the fiber in your diet. Think about when you're consuming these foods, you're balancing your blood sugars, as I've mentioned time and time again. If you're consuming a carbohydrate source of a food, you want to be pairing that with a fat or a protein, if not both. So you want to get that kind of balance there as well. So you want to look at those as ways and means to actually do that. What other ways can you do that? So think about things like if you want to say change up your breakfast and use maybe a yogurt in the morning, which you can do. Greek yogurt's amazing if you're able to tolerate dairy. You can add to that, say, some seeds. Pumpkin is an example, flaxseed is an example, chia, some nuts, maybe almonds, and some berries. So you've got like a nice, rounded, breakfast, or a component of breakfast if you normally have more. And just that example alone will give you 7 grams. Okay. If you're just having a snack in the day, try not to go for the sugary options, the kind of processed options, maybe some berries that you've taken along with you to work if you are snacking. So think about maybe a small bowl of blueberries, add some walnuts to that, and you've got 3.5 grams of fiber. Okay. Think about, as I mentioned, the 5 S's. A salad, for example, could be something that you can include tomatoes, cucumbers, seeds, add some spinach to that, dice some apple on that, and then maybe even have a portion of avocado, a nice salad where you just kind of mixed it up with some, a variety of fruit and veg, make it mainly veg, and then some healthy fats in there. And that will give you, it'll knock off half of your daily allowance. That's 15 grams. So you can see how there isn't a lot of work to be done. Just try and get this essential nutrient into your diet. And I say essential because you can see the benefits it's having, and what it could be preventing us from developing. That's why I'm calling it essential, in no other means, but that's the reason why. So think about doing those things. Think about adding nuts and seeds to your morning oats or your morning chia pudding, or if you've perhaps had a yogurt, add to the yogurt. Easily done. If you're having eggs, for example, in the morning, you can easily have a shake on the side. I do that in the morning sometimes, and I will add the seeds to that, and I might have a piece of fruit with that as well. So it just depends on what the morning looks like. Easily able, you're easily able to add things like beans, chickpeas, legumes to your salad. I do it quite often. So if I'm making, say, for example, an avocado salad with some tomatoes and olives, nuts and seeds, I'll add, I will make sure that it's quite full of nutrients in that way. How easy is it just to top with some, some almonds, some walnuts, whatever you've got to hand. Yeah, and you can see this is then about altering your shoppings in a way so that you've got these at hand. So you're easily then just retrieving them from your your pantry or cabinet, or wherever you store your items. If you've got them to hand, you're going to use them, aren't you? So it's a no-brainer in that sense that you're stocking up on these things. So for me, those are the kinds of foods I will stock up on a weekend: nuts and seeds, avocados, vegetables, fruit. It's so easily done. You put it onto your list and just get them. That's all you need to do. So you've got that ready for the week ahead. So you're not having to reach for foods, first of all, that are not going to serve you so well. And you can easily top up your fiber, whatever it is that you're going to have for your meal. Top it up, add them on, and simply make that part of your meal. It's so easy to do. Think about, using, say, for example, grated carrots, grated apple, on salads as well. So, you don't, it doesn't have to be a boring salad, lettuce and cucumber and tomatoes. You can add more to it. And, these are with everyday um, fruits, veg that you can access. There's no difficulty in getting hold of these things. Think about, your egg breakfast. If you're scrambling an egg, what can you add to it to enhance the nutritional value? So you could add onions to it, tomato, olives are great. I've oftentimes added spinach, really nice. You're making yourself like, just a nice fancier version of an omelette, so to speak. And you can actually add anything that you want in these kinds of foods, because it's about flavoring them. So if you're going to add salt, pepper, you're going to add, a little bit of flavoring to this. You're not necessarily going to not be able to consume the food, because it's kind of like, it's distinct. It's kind of part and parcel of that meal. You're not going to be so averse to trying it. It's going to be easier to consume. So do that with eggs. Do that with soup, stir fries, as I've mentioned. There's so many different ways that you can actually do this. Stir fries are another example, really easy to do. If you're struggling to do your own, you can pick up the bagged versions. They're not ideal, but there's somewhere where you can start. Okay. If you are snacking, think about, having a piece of fruit, whether that's an apple or a banana, and balancing that out with a nice fat. So you might want to do a nut butter. You might want to do a few nuts. If you're using a vegetable, for example, say you're having some carrot sticks or cucumber sticks, think about hummus, think about guacamole, think about other dips that you can, utilize, which have a protein or a fat source in there. So easily done. Yeah. If you are, like I said, consuming berries, think about consuming those with a fat source as well. So maybe a bit of yogurt in there, with your berries. It's really easy to do. Okay. Salads are very easy. Again, mix and match them. Add different things in them. You can even add, if you are doing grains, you can add them to a salad. You can add some rice into a salad. Whatever suits you in terms of creating that healthy meal. Into my stir fries, if I'm doing one, I will add seeds. So I will add some like sunflower seeds just for that crunch, but also you're adding nutritional value as well. And you can do that with soups. You can do that with any kind of meal that you've created. If you want a bit of crunch to it, I mean, I even add it to my curries. I just like to have something different. And I love nuts and seeds. I have them on a daily basis. Obviously, working with your body and just adding things on to what you're already consuming. So there's so many things that you can try. And see what works for you. There's so many ideas out there that it's all about making it kind of fun and enjoyable, and giving your palate a bit of an experience, really. So what could work for you? I mean, some of these maybe you've tried them before. Some of them you're probably thinking, I'm going to definitely try, and some of them you're probably going to be thinking, I don't want to even do that. But that's all fair, because we're individual and it's about looking for something that works for you. So I hope some of those are going to help you to get started if you're at the early stage of your journey. If you're midway, I hope that you're kind of progressing well. And if you're kind of at the higher end, then amazing. I hope that you can add even more to kind of get yourself to those higher goals that you probably set yourself. I hope that, it's been insightful, it's been educational, which is kind of my hope and my goal in this. Obviously not providing medical advice in any way, form or shape, because that's not the idea. And work on things, work your way forward, regardless of whether you have to take a step back or not, because we all are human at the end of the day. It's about kind of finding that way to progress on a gradual and a longer term basis. So I'd love to hear your thoughts as always. Feedback is always greatly appreciated and received. I'm grateful for another opportunity to connect with you. So this is Shazia on the Nutrition Show on Unity FM, 93.5 FM. I look forward to joining you again soon. Take care until next time. Wassalamu alaikum.